On October 31st, 2025, a man named Welton de Franca stood on the bank of the Tocantins River in northern Brazil. The river was loud and fast because it hit a long line of rocks called the Pedral do Lourenço. Rapids are fast, shallow water that rushes over rocks. Welton fishes here, and he also uses the river to move between towns. That same week, he heard the plan. Engineers wanted to break part of this rock field so big cargo boats could pass. To Welton, it sounded like a storm warning. A barge is a big, flat boat that carries cargo. Cargo means the goods being moved, like grain or fuel. The project would clear a channel about 35 kilometers long through the rocky stretch. Brazil's transport agency said this could become part of a long river route that helps move soybeans. Soybeans are small beans used for food and for feeding animals. This was not only a local fight over rocks and water. It was a clue to a much bigger idea that comes up again and again in Brazil. Use rivers like highways. In late 2025, Brazil's ports ministry said the Tocantins Araguaia waterway plan could stretch about 1,700 kilometers and link inland areas to Atlantic ports. A waterway is a route where boats can travel to carry goods. The dream is simple to say and hard to build. Make the inside of South America flow to the sea with fewer trucks and fewer delays. But people who study big rivers talk about an even larger missing link. A river basin is the land where rain and streams flow into the same main river. South America has huge basins, like the Amazon Basin in the north and the La Plata Basin in the south. Some researchers have described a South America waterway system that could connect major basins with a mix of rivers, dredged channels, and ports. Dredging means digging mud and sand from the river bottom so boats can pass. Long before anyone talked about blasting rocks on the Tocantins, barges were already moving on another giant route, the Paraguay and Paraná rivers. This route is often called the Hidrovia Paraguay-Paraná, and it helps ships reach the Atlantic through the Rio de la Plata. It runs through the Pantanal, a vast wetland in the middle of the continent. A wetland is land that stays soaked or flooded for part of the year. Supporters call it a cheap river road. Critics call it a risk to one of the world's most fragile water landscapes. Now zoom out to the cargo that pushes these plans forward. Brazil has become the world's leading soybean exporter, and it keeps trying to ship more each year. In many reports, the story is the same. Farms are moving deeper inland, but buyers are far away across the ocean. Export means selling goods to other countries. When export routes are slow, the cost rises for everyone in the chain, from farmers to food companies. Beef adds another reason the pressure stays high. Brazil is also one of the world's biggest beef exporters, which means meat and animal feed must travel long distances to reach ports. Even when a product is grown in Brazil, the money can be lost on the road. In a country the size of a continent, a long truck trip can become the most expensive part of the journey. That is why planners keep turning back to rivers, even when those rivers are wild and hard to tame. On February 27, 2026, that pressure showed up in a line of trucks. Reports describe trucks carrying soybeans backed up for about 30 kilometers at the Miritituba River Port, an Amazon gateway where crops are moved from trucks onto barges. The port is not on the open ocean, so barges are the next step in the trip. This scene is the modern bottleneck. Roads feed the river, and the river feeds the Atlantic. When any part of it jams, the whole system groans. This is why canal can be a confusing word here. People picture one clean cut through land, like the Panama Canal. But in Brazil, the canal is often a chain of projects: a dredged bend, a deeper channel, a new port ramp, a lock around a dam, or a blasted rock shelf. A lock is a water elevator that lifts boats up or down between different river levels. Put enough of these pieces together and a river becomes a planned transport system instead of a place that only nature controls. Other countries already show why this matters. In the United States, the inland river system moves huge loads on barges, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has long compared barge tows with trains and trucks. One common example in Corps brochures says a 15-barge tow can carry as much as about 870 tractor-trailer trucks. That does not mean barges are always easy. Locks and water levels still matter, but it shows why cheap river transport can change who wins a global farm market. Then comes the first hard turn in the story: the land that floods on purpose. The Pantanal is not a regular river valley. It is one of the world's largest freshwater wetland ecosystems, built on seasonal flood and slow retreat. In the wet season, water spreads out like a wide, shallow lake. In the dry season, the water pulls back and life follows the channels. When a project changes the flow or the timing, the whole living calendar can shift. That is why the Hidrovia Paraguay-Paraná has faced years of arguments. Groups that study nature and rivers have described the project as a mix of real plans, big hopes, and big worries. Supporters talk about jobs and cheaper shipping. Critics point to dredging, straightening, and deeper channels that may speed up water in places where slow water is the point. In courtrooms and public hearings, the same question returns. Can you improve a wetland river without breaking what makes it a wetland? The Tocantins plan hits the same kind of wall, but in a different shape. The wall is not mud and floodplain. It is rock and life that depends on the rock. Reports described legal challenges and strict environmental rules meant to limit harm. Rules can slow a project because each step must be watched, measured, and reported. For river communities, the fear is simple. Once the big boats arrive, the old river rhythm may not come back. The second hard turn is about water that is not there at all. On October 17, 2323, the Rio Negro, a major Amazon tributary near the city of Manaus, reached a record low water level during a severe drought. A drought is a long time with very little rain. Reports said this made it harder for boats to move people and supplies. When the river is too low, a waterway is not a highway anymore. It becomes a maze of sandbars and stranded boats. Climate scientists describe that 2023 drought as part of a dangerous mix, including El Niño and unusually warm ocean water. El Niño is a natural climate pattern that can change rainfall around the world. For shipping planners, the lesson is harsh. A canal dream can fail on a simple fact, which is river depth. A route that works in a wet year can break in a dry year. So the very crisis a canal is meant to solve, climate stress, can also make river logistics weaker. Now the third turn, the race is not only against nature, it is also against other export systems. Every extra day a crop waits at a port is money that disappears. That is why Brazil keeps building new north exit routes that send grain toward Amazon rivers and Atlantic ports instead of only toward the far south. Reports described how new ports and barge routes in northern Brazil have already changed where grain flows. These routes can lower costs, but they can also pull farm frontiers deeper into forests and savannas, which brings another round of political and legal fights. Money is the next gate, and it is just as hard as rock. Reports describe the Tocantins plan as a multi-billion-dollar project that included not only rock removal, but also dredging and other river works. Big projects like this often move in steps, because governments and companies do not fund everything at once. The environmental license came with many restrictions, including limits on when work can happen and how wildlife must be protected. Each restriction is there for a reason, but each one also adds time and cost. That is why many canal dreams stay on paper for years, even when the need feels urgent. Researchers also warn that connected rivers can create new problems if planners think only about cargo. Studies note that South America's major basins do not behave the same way, and water levels can swing sharply from season to season. When one river is high, another may be low, and a single weak spot can stop a whole route. That means the key tool is not only concrete and steel, it is data, river gauges, forecasts, and clear rules for when boats must slow down or stop. A canal can feel like a sure thing, but a river route is always a negotiation with nature. So where does that leave the idea of an inland canal that connects the Atlantic to the Amazon? In truth, the Amazon already reaches the Atlantic. The real question is whether Brazil can connect its farm heartland to Amazon waterways and then to Atlantic shipping in a way that is reliable and lawful. Planning groups have listed river, port, and corridor projects for years. But lists are not the same as finished routes. Each missing piece is a separate battle over money, permits, and the right way to treat a living river. Back on the Tocantins River, Welton de Franca still sees the same thing first: water, rock, and fish. He also sees a future where the river is a worksite marked by buoys and blasting zones. For Brazil, that is the heart of the story. The inland waterway ambition is real, and parts of it already work. But the missing link is not just a canal in the dirt. It is a chain of choices about nature, climate, and the price the world is willing to pay for cheap food.